Thank you, Senator Cruz. The families up here with us are reminders that these are real people with real loved ones that are gone. They should be here today. That's the aviation system our nation should have. Accidents like this do not need to rip family members away. We're here because Flight 5342 and the families that are with us, Amy Hunter, Laura Obajan, and Christina Strovel, thank you so much for being here. As Senator Cruz mentioned, this section 373 of the NDAA doesn't belong in any bill. There's no reason to have this language in the National Defense Authorization Act unless you're somebody who wants to continue to see letting the military do whatever they want to do in a congested airspace. As Senator Cruz mentioned, passing the Rotor Act is our real goal, a reform to the system that would assure that an accident like this would never happen again. Almost 1 year ago, when 67 people died when a Black Hawk helicopter smashed into American Flight 5342 over the Potomac River, we created victims that didn't need to be there. The families have turned that grief into action. They have come to Washington to push for real safety reform. They've met with members of Congress. They have testified. They've done everything we've asked them to do. And what is the response of the Armed Services Committee on their efforts to be heard? Apparently a terrible provision, Section 373, that no one knows quite how got into the NDAA. Believe me, it's not what Senator Cruz and I asked for. It's not what our colleagues on this committee had agreed to. Let me explain what the provision does. After the crash, the FAA and Department of Defense agreed, they agreed in a room not unlike this, over in the Capitol, that military aircraft in DC airspace should broadcast their location with the ADBS broadcast system out after the military agreed that that loophole that it existed was there and that they had been using it 100% of the time. So they all agreed then that this was the right move, close the loophole. Section 373 allows, by law, the military to undo that agreement. It says the military training flights can use less effective technology, and we all know the technology they're talking about isn't even used at this altitude that the crash occurred, and that's because it's so noisy and loud. You would never have it alarming when a pilot is supposed to focus on the functions of landing the plane. So that kind of warning system that is mentioned by those still supporting this provision of the Armed Services Bill are people that don't understand aviation safety. They might be using it as an excuse, but anybody who is involved in aviation safety knows that it is not going to do the job. So this puts a loophole into the law, and this is not what we need. As we mentioned, Senator Cruz, myself, Senator Moran, Senator Duckworth, the NTSB Chair Hamady, we wrote a letter basically calling on this provision to be removed, saying that it was unacceptable, and it put the flying public at risk, and a dismissal of the tragedy that 67 families and their loved ones have gone through. So we're here to say to our colleagues, let's get this out of the National Defense Authorization Act. Let's close this loophole, as Senator Cruz mentioned, when we have time on THUD or whatever legislative process we have, but let's not codify a loophole into law that will allow the military to continue to do whatever they think or see fit and not promulgate a rule by the FAA to make sure that a crowded airspace is definitely not a pathway for allowing commercial aviation flights and military flights to become within a few hundred feet of each other. That's literally what this does. The NTSB does oppose Section 373. The families oppose it. You're going to hear from them right now. The Bipartisan Commerce Committee obviously opposes it, and I hope that the American people will help us oppose it. It's time to make sure that aviation safety is a prime objective, not a secondary objective, a prime objective of this Congress. I thank Senator Cruz, and I think you're going to introduce the family members.